Good morning. KJ7T is in the booth. Today's podcast, Random Wire Reflections, covers the Random Wire Review issue 105 coming out on Friday, August 30th. Today's topics include what radios to select for an upcoming road trip, a new podcast recording combination that I'm using in today's podcast, news of a new ASL audio interface under development by David Gleason NR9V, an update on my project, the ASL/PC1A Restomod project, where I go over wiring, a review of the XHDATA D220 AM/FM shortwave radio, an alternative to Groups.io and Google Groups for a group email address, interesting stuff, features the Zero Retries newsletter, in the grab bag, something about AllStarLink Notify on GitHub, a new Allstar node device called the Allstar Neo II, asteroid mining, really? I flipped for this pocket knife, Wirecutter recommends some walkie-talkies, and I had a wedding anniversary. So with that, let's get started. In item 1, I wonder what radios I should select for an upcoming road trip. I've got a long road trip coming up at the end of September, from Portland, Oregon to Wichita, Kansas. Currently installed in the pickup truck is a Yaesu FTM300DR transceiver with a Comet SS680SB antenna attached to the roof rack. This is a half-wave antenna for 2 meters and 5/8 wave on 70 centimeters. This combination has worked very well for me. Antenna mounting on my Honda Ridgeline is a challenge. I don't want to punch a hole in the roof. A mag mount antenna would be okay, but I know I'll hit some very windy spots while driving, so a mag mount is not preferred. I have lost mag mount antennas in very windy areas like the Columbia River Gorge. I think the most likely would be a modified stake mount of some kind with a mounting plate slipping underneath the tonneau cover that covers the truck bed. Except, unlike other light trucks, the Ridgeline does not have stake pockets. I may have to use the carrier bar mount like I do with the Comet antenna. I do see there are several C4FM repeaters between Portland and Wichita, and since I like C4FM, I plan to use the FTM300DR for the trip. I'll certainly need to add the Colorado digital repeaters to my FTM300 memory. My question is, what other radios or bands should I consider? Eventually, I do want to move into DMR mobile radio, but I have so much piled up on my to-do list that I don't think I can give a new DMR radio the attention it needs before the trip. I like 6 meters, but there are not as many 6-meter repeaters as there used to be. I would consider adding a 6-meter rig for the trip. I have a Yaesu FT891 transceiver and would consider taking that to work 6 meters and some HF. I would like to mount an HF antenna on the truck and would prefer that it be adjustable while driving, i.e. an antenna for mobile use, not just portable use. Listed in issue 105 are 4 potential antennas, including a 6 to 40 meter mobile HF antenna by Alpha Antenna, an SD330 mobile screwdriver antenna by Diamond Antenna, the ATAS 120A auto active tuning antenna by Yaesu, and a new one to me, the GRA750B wideband broadband HF vertical mobile antenna by Gable Radio. I'm intrigued by the GRA750B antenna, even with the quote interesting unquote comments about it on the Amazon listing. I'm not a big fan of putting a screwdriver antenna out in the weather year-round. After all, it rains a lot in Portland, Oregon. The GR750B has no moving parts, and it does require a tuner. The manufacturer rates it for up to 120 watts on SSB and 40 watts on FM. It looks like it would fit on one of the antenna mounts I'm considering. You know, it might make an acceptable POTA antenna on a strong mag mount or on a tripod. For a POTA antenna that I could mount on a tripod or on a hitch adapter on the truck, I'm liking a less than full-size Delta Loop antenna, the E-Antenna HF rotatable antennas 17826.11b. I've often wondered if I could build a poor man's Delta Loop with a couple of 17-foot telescoping aerials and a wire clipped across the top. Item 2 is a new podcast recording combination. For the last several Random Wire Reflections podcasts, I've recorded using a Behringer C1 condenser microphone running through a Behringer Mic 500 USB preamplifier. This week I'm using an Audio-Technica AT2005 USB dynamic microphone through the Mic 500 USB preamp. The AT2005 also has an XLR connector, and that is how the sound is getting from the mic to the preamp today. The AT2005 has a cardioid pattern that does reject more background sounds than the C1 condenser mic, at least when the sound is behind the mic. I think the sound with the AT2005 mic through the preamp is just a little bit cleaner than I was getting with the C1 mic. I tested how this combination sounded and posted the results on the Random Wire Review. As long as I'm talking microphones and associated bits, I purchased a new microphone arm for my recording studio, aka my desk. It is the Fifine, F-I-F-I-N-E, microphone boom arm, low profile, adjustable stick microphone, blah blah blah. It swings out of the way, giving me a bit more room on my small sit-stand desktop surface. Item 3 is news about a new ASL audio interface under development by David Gleason, NR9V. David is creating a new audio interface board on a single PCB called the UCI-120 USB Communications Interface. This device will be suitable for use as an audio interface for an AllStarLink node. I'm really excited about David's project. His board will greatly reduce the time and frustration in building your own high-quality AllStarLink node. Impressive work by NR9V. Find his software for AllStarLink nodes at https://allscan.info. When the UCI-120 becomes available, I assume that's where he will also publish product information. About the UCI-120, David wrote, "The AGC/Dynamics section will have a switch supporting 3 attack/release timing settings, a bypass switch enabling external mic preamps/channel strips/line ends to be used, a switch to support electret, for example headset mics, and a jumper to bypass the low-cut filter, as well as to the mic gain adjust knob and the 0, 10, 20 decibel mic boost switch. With these options, the UCI-120 will support pretty much every type of mic and line input, while also supporting many other applications, for example recording, podcasting, remote rig control, and use as a standard PC USB audio interface." Considering that the UCI-120, quote, "will also be available as the PCB only without enclosure, so it can be used in comms, speakers, phone patches, etc., unquote, I'm tempted to delay my Kenwood PC-1A audio interface project, but since I already have my parts on hand and because I want to extend my learning, I will carry on with the PC-1A build. However, when David's UCI-120 device comes out, I'll be one of the first in line to try it. Item 4 is an update on my project, the ASL PC-1A Restomod project, where I discuss the wiring. I needed a shorter name for this project, so starting today, it is now the PC-1ASL project. I include a list of previous project links in issue 105. My project box is not at all fancy. It is a Plano tackle box that I picked up at a thrift store for a couple of bucks. I find it helps to keep the little bits and pieces together as I work on a project over the course of several weeks. For wiring, I describe the state of my thinking on how to connect the components together. I don't have a good circuit design program, so if a drawing shows up here, I probably did it on the back of an envelope in pencil with lots of erasures. This project revolves around the Masters Communications RL-20 audio board. In issue 105, I list all of the pinouts for the DB9 pad on the RL-20 board for this particular project. I really think I'm only using pin 2, which is audio out, pin 3, which is the PTT signal, pin 6, which is audio input, and pin 8, a ground. Also, for this project, I pulled much of the information for the microphone jack wiring from the allscan.info instructions for building your own AllStarLink node. The pins to be used on the 8-pin round microphone connector include pin 1, which is microphone audio, pin 2, which is the PTT signal, pin 5, which is 5 volts DC coming in from the RL-20 board, pin 7, which is the microphone ground, and pin 8, which is also a ground. And then there are audio amplifiers. The PAM3806 audio amplifier is used for volume out to a mono earphone/headphone or an external speaker. The MAX 9814 amplifier is used to condition audio and control audio gain, i.e. the volume in, being fed to the RL-20 board. And finally, will I need to use capacitors? I think I will need to use at least one. The Alinco EMS57 hand microphone can sound harsh when unkeying the microphone. A capacitor between the mic pin 5 and mic pin 8 might soften that hard-sounding attack. Item 5 in issue 105 is a review of the XHDATA D220 AM/FM shortwave radio. I take a closer look at a radio sent to me for review. The XHDATA D220 radio is a shirt pocket-friendly lightweight radio for casual listening. Lack of contrast on the tuning dial may make it more difficult for some people to use. A full review is available on the Random Wire Review website. Item 6 is an alternative to Groups.io and Google Groups for a group email address. Many of my classmates from my high school senior class would like a way to stay in touch in between reunions. However, some people are concerned about email privacy. So we needed a simple way to communicate that hid email addresses but allowed a classmate to reach out to another classmate. We found a good solution in a service called Gaggle Mail, Gaggle. The free version of this email list service allows up to 1,000 subscribers. Multiple people can serve as administrators, and an incognito mode protects email addresses. The interface is relatively modern and attractive. I did look at Google Groups and Groups.io, but both of those services have some drawbacks. Both are a bit confusing to configure and administer. As my classmates continue to get older, simpler approaches are usually better choices. The free version of Groups.io is limited to 100 subscribers, and with several hundred classmates, 100 was simply not sufficient. Under Interesting Stuff, I identify the Zero Retries newsletter. Random Wire subscribers know I'm a fan of Steve Stroh's excellent newsletter titled Zero Retries. His issue, 0166, is chock-a-block full of great stuff. The items I like the most include a new product from Masters Communications, a new M17 digital voice mode, and Eggnogs, or Egg Beater, antenna kits are now available, covering 5 bands. But there is much, much more to the Zero Retries newsletter. I always find something of interest in Steve's content. Subscribing is Random Wire recommended. In the miscellaneous section, which I call the grab bag, are several items. The first item is from GitHub called AllStarLink Notify. I'm not really sure how I missed this, but I definitely want to install it on my node in the cloud number 57945. This is accessible at the URL https://kj7t.net. From the GitHub page for the ASLNotify project, quote, ASL has a built-in ability to run a script on the connection or disconnection of one node to another node. Many node owners use this functionality as a notification method to know when someone connects or disconnects to their system. This is done via either email or text message, depending on how the owner has the script set up. End quote. I envision setting this up with a service called Pushover to get real-time messages sent to my Android phone. This sounds ideal for monitoring a remote node that I personally rarely use. Next up is the Allstar Neo II. On eBay is a great-looking all-in-one node shipping from the United Kingdom. It's called the Allstar Neo II AllStarLink node, used with HubNet, Echolink, and other networks. This device is based on a Raspberry Pi 4 single-board computer in an Argon Neo aluminum case. If you were looking for an elegant-looking setup, this checks that box. Hopefully there is enough ventilation for the warm RPI 4 to not overheat. The approximately $211 price, plus about $36 shipping, seems pretty reasonable for such a spiffy-looking node. Next up is asteroid mining? Really? My geologic spidey sense was triggered when I read this article, titled, "Against All Odds, an Asteroid Mining Company Appears to be Making Headway." Not to dwell on an obvious pun, but this sounds like an incredibly risky shot in the dark. I'll be following the topic of asteroid mining because, well, it is just so bizarre. Next up is, I flipped for this pocket knife. My new pocket knife instantly became my favorite everyday carry knife. I picked up a Ben Peterson Sendy liner lock flipper knife by Civivi from KnifeCenter.com. The blade is made of Nitro V steel and is less than 3 inches long. I'm a big fan of good micarta knife scales, and the handle of this knife is green canvas micarta. The Sendy has a deep carry pocket clip, and the knife action is silky smooth. Bonus points for the metal tweezers and toothpick hidden in the handle. A few weeks ago, while shopping in Cabela's, I got to talking with the Cabela's representative in the knife section. It turned out that he had also just bought a Civivi knife. So we swapped knives for a few minutes and checked out the two different models. He really liked the Sendy, and I was really glad to get it back from him. Next, the wire cutter recommends some walkie-talkies. If you happen to be in the market for walkie-talkies for yourself or for family members, hint, hunting season is coming up. The New York Times recommends two models in their wire cutter section. The first is the Rocky Talkie Mountain Radio. It's a 2-pack for $220. And the other is the Midland T10X Talker two-way radios. A 2-pack is about $30. Both models are license-free family radio service radios. The Mountain Radio appears to be more water-resistant, while the X-Talker has NOAA weather radio built in. I like the rugged build of the Mountain Radio, but I'm not sure I could stomach $220 for a pair of them. I could buy 7 pairs of the Midland Radio for that amount of money. And finally, this week my spouse and I celebrated our 47th wedding anniversary. It seems actually a bit surreal. We've lived many places and traveled the world together, raised a family, and continue to enjoy our life together. It has been an amazing journey. With that, it's time to close. I say thank you to all subscribers. Please feel free to forward the Random Wire newsletter or this podcast to others who might be interested in this content. 73 to all. This is KJ7T, and I'm clear.